Come on, we're on camera. This is not a time to eat dirt. My dogs eat dirt. Can you believe this? You'd think we didn't feed them. Over here is Leo Gleason. He's an East Oakland Animal Shelter special. This is the exquisite Daisy Mae Doven. She's half Jack Russell and half ghetto, and she loves to eat dirt. And we found her in the gutter. And this is the infamous Guy Loveberg. Guy Loveberg was found cowering in the bushes on 27th Avenue, cornered by a pack of marauding chihuahuas. I'm Jason Victor Serinus. I'm a contributing editor to Stereophile, and my dogs are kind of dedicated to trying to destroy my high-frequency extension of my hearing, but so far it's intact. And why don't we go to the music room? I don't wear shoes in the music room, and these are my slippers. Oh my God, there's a spider. This is what happens when you live one block from nature trails in the woods. I cleaned this place a week ago, but that's what happens. So this is the hallway that we created with the help of Brian Burdan and John Quick. I have some of my CDs stored, and I finally found my car keys. Thank goodness I found my car keys I've been looking for since last night. And I'm constantly trying to find space for everything. A lot of these are SACDs that I have. A lot of other things are on hard drive, like I have about 7 or 8 terabytes on hard drive. And what I keep are vocal recordings, which is my first love. So most of this stuff and behind us and in the other room is all vocal. This too is all vocal. We're starting with Handel up here and going down to Wagner and then Kurt Weill and etc. Mozart is like, and they're 2 layers thick. There's a whole Mozart shelf here, and it goes up. And we're starting with John Adams. And this is the big boxes collection. The boxes collection is getting a little out of hand, and I have no idea what I'm going to do when there are going to be 4 boxes for the Jadi amps that I'm reviewing next. I'm afraid that Mozart is going to be off limits for a little while. And here we go into the music room. Now, one of the things I'll show you is that these are sliding doors over here. This is wallpaper, I think, from Poland that my husband found that he really loved. And so he was hoping that these doors, would stay closed. But what happens when the doors are closed is that the sound is pressurized. And this little piece of tape tells me exactly the right opening for the correct pressure for bass in the room. And here we have the sound system. We have some panels here to deal with first reflections. A lot of this equipment, I think, is pretty well known to readers of Stereophile. These are the Wilson Audio Alexias, which will be replaced perhaps in a matter of weeks by the Alexia 2s, and I'm really excited about that, and I can talk about that. And these are Pass XA 200.8 Class A monoblocks. They weigh 160 pounds each. They're just a joy to carry back and forth, and they're on Grand Prix Monaco amp stands. An interesting thing about these amp stands is that they have different kind of Sorbothane cushions that you need to change according to the weight of components. So I actually have a little list that I keep on one of my break-in CDs and tuning CDs. This is an Isotech thingy where I've somehow scribbled down, I don't know how I ended up on this, the weight of all my different components so I can calculate things. We just raised the TV monitor so that we can see over the new Oppo, which I haven't had time to connect. It is sitting on the DCS Vivaldi, which is here for I'm not sure how long, but I'm not complaining. On top of a Grand Prix Formula platform. This is the DCS Scarlatti clock on another platform. Over here, the Paganini Transport. And above it, if we get down in here, is the Network Bridge. Very unassuming piece of equipment, and very unassuming for price for DCS, which is 240, 250, I think. And perhaps by the time you see this video, that review will be in Stereophile. It really sounds wonderful. On the bottom shelf, we have a Nordos QX4, their quantum noise purifier, an Isotech power conditioner, and a Nook loaded with Rune that I used to play through the network bridge, etc. And all of that I discuss actually, and how it works with the network bridge in the review. Under each amp is a Synergistic Research Tranquility base, which are powered by this transporter, which in turn goes into a power cell that's back there. And one of the most important features of the system are these exquisite styrofoam blocks, which were handcrafted in Sicily for me. And I have to tell you, when they really had the economic crash in Sicily, it was a real moment of crisis, because I wasn't sure if these exquisite pieces of styrofoam would be available. Happily, there seems to be a never-ending supply, because they have a virtual styrofoam plantation. This is the router. And I have an unfortunate situation here, which is that the modem and the main router are in my office on the second floor in the main house, because we were in a detached building. And the signal is not strong enough. And I tried everything under the sun, the strongest router I could find, extenders, various things. And so what I do now is send the signal through the electricity. And I'm just trying an experiment with some green wave filters to see if they will further quiet the noise. So I've got some green wave filters on there. The cabling is all Nordos, Odin, and Odin 2, mainly Odin 2. The room treatment is by Bart Andier of Resolution Acoustics. And initially I bought this decorative bamboo with this living plastic on it to use for first order reflections on the sidewalls. But now that I have Bart's panels, I don't need it. And I wanted to break up the monotony of this black room treatment. So that's what we did. Then there are various, they're called tweaks. I will call them accoutrements. So we have some, okay, let me get it right, Jack Bybee neutralizers, some Stein, God, my mind just blanked, the Stein boxes. They're the Stein boxes. And finally, we have some Blue Suns in various places, including one, if you look at the ceiling, let me turn off the lights because it'll probably look terrible on the video. If you look up there, you can see, we probably need one light. You can probably see that I moved it to be exactly in the center of the room. And my husband came in and said, "What is that black mark?" And I said, "That's where we're going to be painting over." Over here, these couches, which are very carefully positioned in terms of, well, the front couch at least, because the back couch, there's no choice, in terms of distance from the loudspeakers, since the loudspeakers are adjustable according to the height of the ear and the distance from them, used to be in the Pacific Railway Station in San Francisco. And the woman we bought our carriage house, excuse me, in Oakland, where we lived for 10 years in the barrio, sold them to us. They look really nice and period, simple and period authentic. They're not very comfortable. So I have a whole padded thing and a back support here. And I even have this pillow because I am short. And while this is a case of boys and girls with their toys, when my feet dangle from the couch, I do feel like a 5-year-old. And I would never want you to think that the system and that someone who reviewed for Stereophile was a 5-year-old. So what I want to do is show you a bit about what I do in my review process. I take my iPad and I've put a USB stick in the network bridge right now. And This is perfect. I am getting a call for carpet cleaning from Richmond, California. I shall now decline it. I get these junk calls every once in a while. They come at the most wonderful times, and it's always, the best time was when I was at the beach with the dogs, and I'm a terrible ball thrower. You don't want to be anywhere near me where I throw the ball. And I had the ball thrower, and I did a high fly. It wasn't supposed to be high fly, but it was a really high fly ball. And the dogs can't follow it when it goes that high, so it's up to me, because if I don't follow it, we lose the ball. And just as it's going in the air, the iPhone rang, and it was, "Hi, this is Amy. Do you want your carpets cleaned?" And I lost the ball. So thank you again, Amy, for constantly pursuing me, even up in Port Townsend, Washington. When I was talking about the system earlier, and I was showing you, the synergistic tranquility bases and the Bybee neutralizers and the Stein harmonizers and the Blue Suns, there's a reason for all of that, which is, number one, it creates a very three-dimensional soundstage, and number two, it really helps with transparency and clarity. And that's one of my goals, to lower the noise floor so much that I can really hear everything that the system can do, everything the equipment is capable of when I'm reviewing, and also when I'm reviewing music, so that I can hear all the nuances. And it's really wonderful when I discover, for example, that when I've attended a live performance that's recorded, because of the variables in the hall, there are these little nuances that I may not hear, but the microphone picks them up. And in terms of a violinist or a singer or whatever, that means a tremendous amount to me, because that is what the artist is putting into the music. That is their heart and soul. Whether or not every bit of it reaches an audience member back in the 25th row or up in the balcony, that is what they want us to hear and hope we will hear. And if something is recorded really well, and also if it's in high res, which gets closer to natural sound, and most of the recordings I review, I purposely try to get high res files, I want a system that will give me everything that recording can offer, so that I hear more of what's happening at the point of creation. So anyway, I take my iPad, and I, in this case, bring up the DCS Network Bridge review app and click on it, which is really simple. I've got a USB stick in there loaded with 128 gigabytes of music. And scrolling through here, I'm going to go to MQA files that John Atkinson sent me. And I will pick Luxorumque by Eric Whitaker, performed by Cantus. And this was a recording that I think was produced by Eric Light. And it goes like this. I just touch it and push this little thingy, and yes. And then I adjust the volume. Realize that you can't hear this really on the microphone, but what's happening now is this was recorded, I believe, in a church acoustic. I can't remember the name of the church. And the way I have the system set up with everything in here, I'm getting more of a sense of being enveloped by the acoustics of a church. And that's really thrilling. Plus, I've got good equipment. The Pass amps, which I'm using as my reference right now, I'm also probably going to be using the D'Agostino progressions as a reference, and they do different things. The Pass amps have this absolutely gorgeous natural sound, And I just love it. I just really love it. It makes me feel good. And, isn't that really what's important? There are a few other rather curious things. For example, for some unknown reason, I have this box, Les Introuvables d'Elisabeth Schwarzkopf. It's an EMI French box of 5 cassettes that someone gave to me. And I've never known what to do with it, so I've decided that it's my notepad. And I take a piece of scrap paper and a pen, and I start writing away. So what am I listening for? Because I have a system that is really refined, I'm able to hear, especially color is very important to me, and I talk about that a lot when I go room to room and when I do my reviews. I once had an editor who was rather literal and went, "What do you mean about color? Music is sound." Well, I didn't know what to say, but music has color. There are dark tints. So if I'm listening to Shostakovich or I'm listening to Berg's 3 Pieces for Orchestra, I want a system that will really convey that darkness and the gravity of the music and the weight of it as well. And then when I have something light like this, which is what the music is about, I want to have that kind of glow and that light coming through. I was just at the Rocky Mountain Audio Fest, and in fact, I'm in the middle of writing my blogs, and there were a lot of really excellent systems that had what I'd call a dark cast to them. And initially, I didn't understand what this meant about, light and dark. And someone said, imagine lighting something with a 100-watt bulb or lighting it with a 60-watt bulb. And I personally like 100-watt bulbs for music. I like every color, everything to come out. But some people, especially if people have lively rooms or their equipment tends to be a little bright or edgy, will prefer a darker cast to it. It's not as illumined, but if, for example, a lot of the time you listen to music in the background, it's less obtrusive, it's less demanding of your attention. But when I'm here, this is what I want to do. I want to listen. And so I want all the light and all the color that I can get. And I also don't want it to be overly smooth. I want it to be realistic. So a little warmth is lovely. Too much warmth. I once had a speaker system where, actually it was an amp, and I won't go into the names, but everything was sweet. So there was the grief and the suffering of the Russian people. And people were about to be shot on the steps, And think of is it Eisenstadt movie? And everything sounded sweet and sugar-coated, and I couldn't stand it. I had to move on from that amp. So I've been very careful and fortunate in my choice of components to give me that timbre. And then I just sit and I listen. And often I get up from this place. I don't sit here the whole time. And I'm moving things in and out a lot. So I mentioned earlier that I'm really looking forward to the Alexia 2s. And one of the reasons is that even though these are 200-watt Class A monoblocks, they have a little trouble with the impedance curve in the Alexia 1, which dips down to something like their 4 ohm nominal impedance, and it dips down to something like 1.3 or 1.5. Peter McGrath recently told me at Rocky Mountain when we were both exhausted, and Lord knows if I remember. And that's really hard for tube amps. It really gave the Margulis couldn't handle it. And even these pass amps, the bass can be a little soft. So right now, this is not a rock and roll system. It depends on what the pitch of the percussion is. And some of it is really tight and some of it's a little... The D'Agostino progressions do a better job with that. And the 2 amps sound different and they have different strengths. What I'm really excited about is if I remember correctly, the Alexia 2 dips down. If one is 1.3, the other one dips down only to 2.8. So it's a much easier load in the bass, which means that all of the equipment that I review, all of the amps I review, will have an easier time, and also the music will be more exciting. And I think what I'm going to do is pull up another cut by John Atkinson I really haven't played, but it's organ music by Vidor, and we'll just see what the system can do. Down here is the Vidor, and I just punch it in, and then I hit play, and the way I have it set up, this will delete the contents of the current play queue. Do you want to continue? And I go, yes. So one of the things that's really fun about that is it really shows how low the system can go and how high, and everything's going at the same time. And you know, Peter McGrath often plays organ music when he wants to show off what the Wilsons can do. There's a real visceral thrill in all of this. I might add that this flooring, which is Cali bamboo, is on a cement slab. So this is pretty grounded. And as I talked about in the Building the Sound Room story, we did a lot of work on the walls so that all of the materials and the layers are the same all the way around, and did the best we could with the dimensions. I mean, if I win the lottery, we will expand the music room that way and that way. But the way I have it set up, this full range stuff works without distortion or without testing the room in this space, which is really great. You know, it's rather an intimate process to bring people to your house, even somewhat vicariously or removed, in terms of a video that's on the Stereophile site and on YouTube, and invite them to see your equipment and then what you do. I remember there was this guy who came to my place in Oakland with the members of the Bay Area Audiophile Society, so that then he could have things to trash. And he smiled, and he was all really friendly and nice looking guy, and then completely trashed everything we did. And I do recall somebody who made this inane comment in the comment section after Michael Fremer's video, that based on the sound of Michael Livornia's voice in his barn and the sound of Michael Fremer's music playing in the background for about 5 seconds in his music room, he knew everything that was wrong with their two music rooms. So I expect that everybody who wants to find something wrong with the setup can certainly do it. But what I can tell you is that this configuration of equipment brings me joy. It brings me really great joy. And earlier in my journey, my audiophile journey, I had amps that weren't exactly right. I had digital equipment that wasn't exactly right. I had tunable speakers that were the bane of my existence that I could never write. One time I finally thought I got them exactly perfectly. And one of the things is marijuana is legal in Washington State, but I do not listen stone because it completely skews up my hearing. And so I brought someone over and we got stoned, and I went, oh my God, something's wrong with the speakers. And I completely destroyed the tuning by doing these little things. So it's like, that's not what I want anymore. So I've got everything really dialed in so that I can just sit back and let the music wash over me. And if that's the way you approach music, I encourage you to do the work, to find the equipment that enables you to just sit back and go, because when music really touches me, I feel good to be alive, and I feel really blessed, and I'd like to, I want more of this. I want to keep on coming back for more. And that's what I hope will happen with you as well, with your system. So I'm not really warmed up. In terms of my whistling, I don't perform that much these days, and I have to say that it can sometimes be a real challenge when I'm listening to my favorite sopranos to not whistle along. But I thought I'd do something here, and this is The Way You Look Tonight, Academy Award-winning song from 1936, music by Jerome Kern, lyrics by Dorothy Fields. Especially when I hit play. There we go. Okay, what's happening? Okay. So it's a really interesting thing to be both an audiophile who that makes you the butt of a hell of a lot of jokes, especially in the straight media, and to also be a professional whistler, which in itself is a rather curious choice. But somehow I've ended up being both. And you know, very, very funny things happen to you when you're a whistler. I was once performing at this outdoor festival in, I think, San Mateo in Northern California. And there was this great group of senior citizens, and I was doing the Indian Love Call that I have the late Hokum Jeeves recorded toy piano and saw, and then I whistle over his accompaniment, piano, toy piano, and saw. And I'm doing this whole thing, and there's a certain point where I jumped out off the stage and I decided to climb over chairs, and I picked this one woman with these glowing eyes, and I was going to serenade her. I went down on one knee, I reached out my hand, I hit the high G, and she dropped 50 cents in the palm of my hand. And I went, okay. And there you have it, you know. But the main thing is just enjoy it, whatever it is, as best you can.